Okay, so picture this. A creature that is so mind-numbingly effective at hunting, so brutally efficient that it almost feels like nature cheated, like it mashed up the best parts of two unrelated apex predators and unleashed a nightmare on the Miocene landscape. I'm talking about a beast with the sheer bone-crushing power and bulk of a grizzly bear, but with the intelligence, the speed, the almost canine cunning of a massive direwolf. This isn't some hypothetical monster cooked up in a lab, no sir. This was real. This was the bear dog, the Amphicyonidae. And let me tell you, for a solid chunk of Earth's history, from about 40 million years ago all the way down to a mere 2 million years ago, these things were the absolute top of the food chain, a living, breathing testament to nature's bizarre creativity. The nature once created the perfect predator, the intelligence of a wolf in the body of a half-ton bear. Now, before you get confused, when I say bear dog, I don't mean some kind of weird hybrid you'd find in a mythological encyclopedia. This wasn't a bear that got friendly with a dog. These were an entirely separate family of carnivores, a distinct evolutionary branch that looked, acted, and hunted in ways that were a truly terrifying blend of both modern bears and modern canids. Think of it like this. If a grizzly bear and a gray wolf had a very, very angry, highly muscular, and deeply misunderstood baby, that would still not quite grasp the sheer primal force that was an amphicyonid. They had their own thing going on, and their thing was pure, unadulterated apex predation. The stage for this drama, this prehistoric showdown, was primarily North America and Eurasia during the Miocene epoch. We're talking about a world that was lush, warm, incredibly diverse, a vibrant tapestry of evolving mammals. Giant rhinos, early elephants, bizarre chalicotheres that looked like horses with gorilla arms, and whole herds of ancient horses and camels, all grazing on vast savannas and within sprawling temperate forests. It was a buffet, and the amphicyonids were there to eat. Let's talk about the OG heavy hitter, the poster child for these absolute units, Amphicyon engines. The name itself, Amphicyon, means ambiguous dog, which tells you everything you need to know about how scientists first scratched their heads trying to figure these guys out. And engines means huge, so the huge ambiguous dog. And when I say huge, I'm not kidding. Imagine a grizzly bear, the biggest one you've ever seen, maybe one of those giant Kodiak bears from Alaska, weighing in at a respectable 1,500 pounds, standing almost 10 feet tall on its hind legs. Now imagine something even beefier, even more muscular, with a longer, more powerful tail and a skull that screams bone crusher. That's the ballpark we're playing in for Amphicyon engines. This beast could easily hit 1,000 to 1,500 pounds, maybe even more for the largest individuals. A quarter to half a ton of muscle, tooth, and claw, a walking tank. And these weren't just big, lumbering tanks. Oh no, they had the brains to back up the brawn. While bears are incredibly intelligent in their own right, and wolves are masters of coordinated hunting, the bear dogs seem to possess a unique cognitive toolkit that allowed them to thrive in an environment brimming with formidable competitors. Their brain size relative to their body indicates a level of intelligence that put them squarely in the smart predator category. They weren't just running around hoping for a lucky swipe. They were calculating, planning, observing. They were hunters that thought about their prey, about the landscape, about the best angle of attack. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what made these things so terrifyingly effective. First off, the skull. Amphicyonid skulls were truly a marvel of biomechanical engineering designed for one purpose: utter destruction. They were broad and robust, reminiscent of a bear's skull, capable of housing powerful jaw muscles that could generate immense Dopplerforce. But unlike a bear's more omnivorous dentition, which is great for crushing berries, grinding roots, and occasional meat, the bear dogs had a set of teeth that were pure carnivore. Their canines were long, sharp, and dagger-like, perfect for piercing thick hides and delivering devastating bites. Then came the carnassials, those specialized shearing teeth found in all modern carnivorans. In amphicyonids, these teeth were extremely well developed, creating a scissor-like action that could slice through flesh and sinew with terrifying efficiency. Their molars were robust, capable of crushing bone with ease, giving them access to every last bit of nutrition from a carcass, something bears do well but canids less so. So you had the crushing power of a bear, the shearing ability of a wolf, all in one package. It was a biomechanical masterpiece of destruction, designed to kill quickly and efficiently. Their limbs were another fascinating blend. While bears are plantigrade, meaning they walk flat-footed like humans, and dogs are digitigrade, walking on their toes, amphicyonids seem to have something in between, or at least a highly specialized form of digitigrady that allowed for incredible power. Their legs were stocky, heavily muscled, clearly built for power over sustained high-speed pursuit. They weren't cheetahs, certainly not, but they weren't slow either. Imagine a very powerful short sprint, a sudden burst of speed to ambush unsuspecting prey. They had broad paws, possibly semi-retractable claws, excellent for grappling and holding on to struggling prey. Their hind legs were particularly robust, providing the explosive power needed for a quick charge or to knock down a large animal. They were built like a linebacker, strong, explosive, and able to deliver a serious hit. And yes, I know what you're thinking. How did something this big hide? Spoilers, it didn't, not really. It used terrain, it used cunning, and it relied on sheer intimidation. When you're a half-ton of muscle and teeth, you don't always need to be sneaky. Sometimes just showing up is enough. The tail of an amphicyonid, especially the larger species, was long and muscular, acting as a crucial counterbalance. This would have been vital for stability during a chase, for sudden turns, and for maintaining balance while wrestling with large prey. It was not just a decorative appendage, it was a functional part of their predatory toolkit, a rudder for a living battleship. The sheer musculature running down their spine and into that tail would have made them incredibly powerful, giving them that unmistakable bear-like swagger, a low-slung, powerful gait that radiated menace. Now, let's set the scene for a moment. Imagine yourself back in the Miocene, maybe in what is now Nebraska. The air is warm and humid, thick with the smell of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the distant metallic tang of an approaching storm. Sunlight filters through the canopy of ancient deciduous trees, painting dappled patterns on the forest floor. You hear the rustling of leaves, the chirping of insects, the distant calls of early birds. Suddenly, the forest goes silent. Every small creature holds its breath. A heavy thud, thud, thud echoes through the undergrowth, growing louder, closer, and then, through a break in the trees, you see it, an amphicyonid. Its fur, perhaps shaggy and grizzled like a bear's, or maybe shorter and denser like a powerful dog's, ripples over massive muscles. Its eyes, dark and intelligent, scan the landscape. Its snout, broad and powerful, twitches, sampling the myriad scents carried on the breeze. It's not running. It's lumbering with purpose, a relentless engine of destruction, searching. This isn't just an animal, it's an event. What were these apex predators hunting? The Miocene world was full of large herbivores. There were early horses, smaller than modern horses but still substantial. There were ancient camels, long-necked and surprisingly robust. There were the oreodonts, pig-like or sheep-like creatures, abundant and slow. And then there were the really big targets, the chalicotheres, these truly bizarre hoofed mammals with massive claws on their forelimbs, probably used for stripping leaves from trees, but also capable of delivering a mean defensive blow. And the rhinos, thick-skinned and formidable. A full-grown amphicyonid would have been capable of tackling any of these, given the right circumstances. Their hunting strategy was likely a blend of ambush predation and sheer overwhelming power. They wouldn't be running down prey for miles like a wolf. Instead, they would use their intelligence to stalk, to get close, and then to unleash a sudden, brutal charge, using their immense weight and powerful jaws to bring down their victim. They would grab on, crush, tear, and simply overpower. It was brutal, it was effective, it was peak predator performance. One of the big questions about amphicyonids, and something paleontologists have debated for ages, is their social structure. Were they solitary hunters like most modern bears, or did they hunt in packs like wolves? Given their massive size and individual power, it's plausible that they could have been solitary, preferring to operate alone and only interacting for mating. A half-ton bear dog doesn't really need help taking down most prey. However, the presence of larger brain cases suggests a higher level of cognitive function, which can sometimes correlate with more complex social behaviors. Some theories suggest smaller family units, perhaps a mother and her cubs working together for a period, or maybe opportunistic aggregations at large carcasses. The truth is, we don't have definitive fossil evidence for pack hunting like we do for some early canids. But if they did hunt in packs, even small ones, a group of these monsters would have been utterly unstoppable, a truly terrifying force of nature. Imagine 2 or 3 amphicyons coordinating a hunt, using their combined intelligence and power to corner a giant rhino. That's nightmare fuel right there. the evolutionary journey of the bear dogs is also pretty wild. They emerged from a group of early carnivorans called Miacids, small, weasel-like creatures that scurried through the Eocene forests. As the climate shifted and forests gave way to more open grasslands, these early carnivorans diversified, and the amphicyonids were one of the most successful branches. For millions of years, they were dominant. They evolved into many different shapes and sizes, from smaller, more dog-like forms to the truly colossal species like amphicyon ingens. They radiated across continents, adapting to various ecological niches, proving just how adaptable and successful this body plan was. They were so good at what they did, so perfectly engineered for their time. So, if they were so perfect, why aren't they around today? This is where the story gets really interesting, and it's a classic tale of evolutionary competition and environmental change. The Miocene was a dynamic time, and while the bear dogs were busy being awesome, other carnivoran lineages were also evolving and perfecting their own predatory strategies. Enter the true canids, the ancestors of modern wolves, foxes, and domestic dogs. These guys, while generally smaller than the big amphicyonids, were evolving a different kind of predatory efficiency. They were becoming leaner, faster, more agile endurance runners. They perfected the art of pack hunting, relying on speed, stamina, and coordinated attacks to wear down prey. They were getting good, really good. And then there were the ursids, the true bears. While some early bears were also quite carnivorous, they were generally developing a more omnivorous diet, becoming adaptable generalists. They could eat meat, yes, but also berries, roots, insects, whatever was available. This flexibility gave them a resilience that pure carnivores sometimes lacked during times of environmental stress. As the Miocene transitioned into the Pliocene and then the Pleistocene, the climate began to cool and habitats started to shift. Forests shrank, grasslands expanded. This favored the fast, efficient pack-hunting canids who could cover vast open spaces and bring down large herbivores through endurance. It also favored the adaptable, omnivorous bears who could survive on a wider variety of food sources when meat was scarce. The bear dogs, with their powerful but perhaps less enduring build and their hyper-carnivorous diet, found themselves in a squeeze. They were outcompeted by the emerging canids in terms of pursuit predation and outgeneralized by the true bears in terms of dietary flexibility. They were too specialized, too committed to their particular brand of overwhelming power in a world that was rapidly changing. Their very perfection became their downfall. They were kings of their specific niche, but when that niche began to shrink, they couldn't adapt quickly enough. It's a poignant reminder that in evolution, what makes you dominant in one era can make you obsolete in the next. The last of the amphicyonids faded into the fossil record around 2 million years ago, leaving the stage to the ancestors of the animals we know today. The discovery of these creatures by early paleontologists must have been absolutely mind-blowing. Imagine finding a jawbone that clearly isn't a bear's and isn't a wolf, but has elements of both on a scale far beyond anything alive today. The initial confusion, the careful piecing together of fragments, the debates among scientists trying to classify these bizarre new animals. It wasn't always clear sailing. For a long time, their exact relationships were a puzzle. Were they very primitive bears? Were they giant early dogs? Or something else entirely? The unique combination of features eventually led to their recognition as a distinct, incredibly successful, but ultimately extinct lineage. The ambiguous dog became a giant, terrifying reality. I mean, think about the paleontologists who first unearthed a complete skull or a massive femur. The sheer weight of the bones, the density, the way those huge canines would have glinted under the harsh sun as they cleaned off the dirt. The realization that they were holding the remains of a predator that could have torn apart anything they knew from modern world. That's the kind of discovery that changes your understanding of prehistoric life, that pushes the boundaries of what you thought was possible. These were not just another group of ancient carnivores. They were a unique, powerful, and truly bizarre experiment in evolution. So the next time you see a majestic wolf tack or a formidable grizzly bear, take a moment and then let your mind wander back to a time when neither of them ruled alone, to a time when an entirely different kind of apex predator walked the earth, a half-ton bruiser that combined the best, or worst depending on your perspective, of both worlds. A beast that was massive, relentless, and utterly without peer for millions of years. The bear dog, a true marvel of the lost world.
If you thought this deep dive into the awesome and terrifying world of the amphicyonids was as epic as I did, make sure you hit that like button.
And if you want to keep exploring the planet's most incredible prehistoric creatures, go ahead and subscribe to The Lost World. I've got so many more stories to tell you, so many more ancient monsters to uncover. Thanks for watching, and until next time on The Lost World.